I have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philadelphia, I'll tell you that.
With the second pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Saquon Barkley, running back, Penn State.
The 2018 AP Offensive Rookie of the Year is...
Saquon Barkley.
Are we positive that nobody's going to pay him that kind of money?
I mean, who would you say would go sign up running back to that dollar amount?
A team that's, anyone that has money to spend.
Saquon Barkley now has a deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a 3-year deal worth almost $38 million.
The fight to Barkley, who beats one man, spins past another, leaps over a third, and comes down at the 30.
There goes Barkley into the clear, through the snow, all the way home. He's hit another home run, and this one might send him to the championship game.
These guys keep. They really can't. I don't care how many times they've been here. I don't care how many times they won it. They haven't seen a team like us.
He's the most dynamic running back in the NFL today.
Here's Barkley, a little shovel, looking for an edge, gets it. Saquon Barkley, first down. Barkley, oh! Saquon, touchdown!
An explosive playmaker who came into the league with crushing expectations and ended up crushing it himself. From the Bronx to Penn State, and then once again from New York to Philly, this is the story behind Saquon Barkley. Saquon Rasul Cuevas Barkley was born February 9, 1997 in the Bronx, New York, one of 5 children to Alabae Barkley and Tanya Johnson. Saquon's father had been a boxer, as had his great-uncle, former WBC middleweight champion Iran Barkley, and young Saquon would have ended up a fighter himself if his old man had his way. But Alabae Barkley's dreams for his son were betrayed by the New York Jets tattoo on his left arm. Instead of boxing, Saquon fell in love with football, and the youngster would tell his father while watching the Jets games that one day he'd play for that team. Saquon's allegiance to the Jets would be tested after he and his family relocated from New York to eastern Pennsylvania, but his dreams of playing professional football became increasingly plausible as Barkley entered his teenage years. A tremendous all-around athlete who also excelled at basketball and track and field, Barkley's NFL potential was on full display at Whitehall High, a member school in one of the nation's premier athletic conferences. Blessed with tremendous speed, agility, and instincts, the young running back was a force throughout his high school career, lettering 3 times and elevating himself into one of the country's most tantalizing prospects with his outstanding senior season. That year, Barkley ran for nearly 1,900 yards and scored 31 touchdowns in 11 games, garnering first-team All-State honors and earning himself the Mr. Pennsylvania Football Award for 2014. He ended up as a 4-star recruit and received scholarship offers from major programs like Ohio State and Notre Dame. In the end, however, Barkley decided to stay close to home, decommitting from his initial choice of Rutgers, the school he grew up cheering for, to accept a scholarship offer from Penn State. At the time, Penn State and its football program were still marred by the Jerry Sandusky sexual abuse scandal that had upended college football only a few years prior. But Barkley was compelled by the opportunity to, as he put it, make this place special again. He sure did his part. In 2015, Barkley established a new school record for rushing yards by a freshman, and ultimately set the stage for what would be one of the most indelible careers in Penn State history. As a sophomore, Barkley became the focal point of Penn State's offense, leading the Big Ten in all-purpose yards and touchdowns, and propelling the Nittany Lions to their finest season since before the scandal. For his efforts, he was named Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year. As extraordinary as he was, though, his sophomore campaign paled in comparison to what Barkley accomplished the following season. As a junior, Barkley's role expanded even more. In addition to being Penn State's starting running back, he also became their go-to kick returner. Basically, if there was an opportunity to get the ball into Barkley's hands, Penn State was going to take it, and it was a good strategy. In the end, Barkley finished second in the FBS in all-purpose yards, fourth in total touchdowns, and led Penn State to a second straight 11-win season and a victory over Washington in the Fiesta Bowl.
Barkley off the left side. Here he goes. Look at the speed. Oh, my goodness. Breaks a tackle. Gonna take it to the house. 92 yards. Toying with the defender. Saquon Barkley.
In the process, Barkley not only etched his name into the Penn State history books, setting school records for scrimmage yards and rushing touchdowns, but he cemented himself as a top 10 pick in the 2018 NFL Draft. In fact, the consensus among pundits was that Barkley was the best player available in that year's class, and why not? He was an elite runner, he could catch passes, and by all accounts, his makeup was off the charts. Seemingly, Barkley had all the makings of a franchise-altering player. And get this, the New York Jets, the team Barkley dreamed of playing for as a boy, had the 3rd overall pick. It was fate, right? Well, no actually, because the other New York franchise, the Giants, had the 2nd overall pick. And while it would have been prudent for them to draft a quarterback who could succeed the 37-year-old Eli Manning, the Giants couldn't pass up a potentially franchise-altering running back from the Bronx.
With the 2nd pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Saquon Barkley, running back, Penn State.
There you see the hug from his Penn State head coach, James Franklin. Saquon Barkley going back to where he came from.
It was a cool story, the New York kid coming home to reinvigorate the Giants, but the resulting pressure on Barkley was enormous. And not just because he was a hometown kid. For one, running backs, as a general rule, don't get taken that high in the draft on account of their relatively short NFL shelf life. In fact, Barkley was, and as of 2024 remains, just the 3rd running back to be drafted 2nd overall this century. No running back has been drafted 1st overall since 1995. Meanwhile, Giants then general manager Dave Gettleman added to that pressure with the way he raved about Barkley, famously saying that the young running back was touched by the hand of God. It was a lot to live up to, but if Barkley was feeling the pressure as he embarked on his NFL career, you wouldn't have known it from watching him. In his first NFL season, Barkley was an absolute revelation, emerging as the fulcrum of the Giants' offense and validating the hype that accompanied him to the league. As a rookie, Barkley logged more touches than anyone in the NFL other than Ezekiel Elliott and led the league with more than 2,000 scrimmage yards, 1,307 on the ground and another 721 in the air. He also scored 15 touchdowns, tying him for 3rd in the league. He was a superstar from the get-go, and for his efforts, Barkley was named Offensive Rookie of the Year, making him just the 2nd player in Giants history to win the award, along with then-teammate Odell Beckham Jr. And although his outsized contributions went for naught on a 5-11 Giants team inelegantly transitioning out of the Manning era, Barkley's superb rookie season provided a huge reason for optimism in New York. As it turned out though, the promise of Barkley's arrival soon gave way to frustration. Following his sensational rookie season, which got him elected as a team captain, Barkley's sophomore campaign was hampered by a high ankle sprain that limited him to 13 games. He still managed to log more than 1,000 rushing yards and 1,400 scrimmage yards, but he wasn't as efficient as he was in his rookie season. Meanwhile, the Giants remained a non-factor in the first season of the Daniel Jones era, finishing at 4-12. Then things got really bad. In week 2 of the 2020 campaign, Barkley's season and career were upended when he suffered a gruesome right knee injury at Chicago's Soldier Field.
Operating from the gun, it's Jones on a handoff. Barkley gets to the hole, flag down, slowed down, and then slammed down along the sideline. And Barkley is down at the right knee, ripped off the helmet, and now is being helped across the field. He can put no pressure on that right leg.
The diagnosis? A torn ACL, a partially torn meniscus, and a sprained MCL, the kind of catastrophic injury that can derail a running back's career. His 2020 season was finished, and whatever hope the Giants and their fan base had at the time about their future shriveled up with Barkley's injury, which he later described as the weakest moment of his life. However, the 23-year-old was determined not to let this injury define him or threaten his once promising career. After undergoing reconstructive surgery, Barkley spent the better part of a year rigorously rehabbing his knee, at one point undergoing 4 to 6 hours of physical therapy a day. For their part, the Giants were optimistic enough about Barkley's ability to regain his explosiveness that they exercised their 5th-year option on his contract, committing to him through the 2022 campaign. And to Barkley's credit, when week 1 of the 2021 season arrived, he was ready to go, back at full health and ready to get his career back on track. Except before long, Barkley's comeback campaign was halted by another injury. In week 5, after a noticeably slow start to his season, Barkley suffered an ankle injury during a game against the Cowboys. He had to be carted to the locker room, and Barkley ended up missing the next 4 games, another punishing blow for the Giants and their increasingly frustrated superstar. And when Barkley returned from that injury, he didn't look like the dynamic, game-breaking force he had been. All told, Barkley amassed less than 900 scrimmage yards over 13 games in 2021, averaging a measly 3.7 yards per carry for another dismal Giants team that put up double-digit losses for a whopping 5th straight season. To call things bleak would have been a massive understatement. the Giants were completely lost, and their brightest star had seemingly lost a step before turning 25. Barkley himself even called that perception fair in the wake of his uninspiring 2021 campaign, but he also told his detractors to keep that same energy when he proved them wrong and returned to his former self, which is exactly what he did. In 2022, after 2 injury-marred seasons in a row, Barkley once again began to resemble the superstar he was at the outset of his career, recapturing his explosiveness and turning in a monster season both on the ground and as a pass catcher. Aided by a career year from Jones and a generally improved Giants offense, Barkley racked up a then-career high in rushing yards while adding 59 receptions. In total, he managed his most scrimmage yards and touchdowns since his rookie season, and his return to Pro Bowl form helped the Giants not only turn in their first winning season of his career, but earn a playoff berth for the first time since 2016. And in his first ever playoff game, Barkley was a beast, scoring a pair of touchdowns while recording 109 scrimmage yards in a Giants win. His career was unequivocally back on track, and the Giants, for the first time in his 5 years there, were trending upward. The thing is though, Barkley was suddenly on the verge of free agency, and the Giants had to decide how or if they wanted to make the gifted but oft-injured running back a part of their future. What they ultimately decided, however, was to defer that decision. Instead of signing Barkley to the long-term contract he desired, the Giants hit him with the franchise tag following his resurgent 2022 campaign, retaining him on a 1-year deal. Clearly, the Giants, who signed Jones to a 4-year, $160 million extension that same offseason, were unsure about Barkley's future, and as the 2023 season unfolded, perhaps the organization even felt slightly vindicated. Following his return to form in 2022, Barkley's production dipped as the Giants fell off a cliff. His volume and efficiency dropped off, he didn't earn a Pro Bowl nod, and ultimately, after 6 seasons of volatility, and with their organization stuck in unserious mode, the Giants made the decision to let Barkley walk. Instead of signing him to a long-term deal, instead of using the franchise tag on him for a second straight offseason and keeping him around for at least 1 more year, the Giants decided to let the centerpiece of their offense and their most popular player hit free agency, even though Barkley said he wanted to be a Giant for life. It will undoubtedly go down as one of the worst decisions in franchise history.
I'm going to have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philadelphia, I'll tell you that. As I've told you, just being out. I've been around enough players, so, but he's the most popular player we have by far.
Yeah, it's safe to say that Giants owner John Mara didn't get much sleep in 2024. Shortly after New York cut him loose, Barkley found a new home with one of the Giants' NFC East division rivals, signing a 3-year deal with the Philadelphia Eagles, a formidable team that had gone to the Super Bowl in 2022 but collapsed the following season. On the surface, it looked like an uncharacteristic move by the Eagles, who hadn't invested serious money in a running back since LaShawn McCoy more than a decade earlier. Additionally, the Barkley deal came at a time when running backs were being devalued and seeing their contracts suppressed throughout the league. But the Eagles brass was enchanted by his varied skill set, and they felt that Barkley could be the piece that took them from Super Bowl contenders into Super Bowl champions. And man, were they ever right. In his first season with Philadelphia, Barkley turned in one of the most extraordinary performances by a running back in league history and helped transform the Eagles into a juggernaut. In an offense loaded with Pro Bowlers, Barkley was by far the most dangerous weapon, becoming just the 9th player ever to eclipse 2,000 rushing yards in a season while totaling almost 2,300 scrimmage yards. Were he not held out of Philadelphia's regular season finale, by the way, he may well have claimed the single-season rushing yards record for himself. Oh, and in his much-anticipated Week 7 return to New York, Barkley ran for 176 yards and a touchdown in a beatdown of the Giants. And was he ever a workhorse? Over the course of Philly's 14-3 season, Barkley received a staggering 378 touches, the most in the league and a career high. The only thing more impressive than shouldering that workload was how efficient he was. Barkley averaged an astonishing 6 yards per touch, which eclipsed even his rookie season. For his efforts, Barkley won Offensive Player of the Year in a landslide and also finished 3rd in MVP voting. No easy feat for a player who isn't a quarterback. Yeah, the Giants screwed up hard. And it wasn't over yet. Barkley was an absolute menace in the playoffs for the number 2 seeded Eagles, scoring 5 touchdowns and averaging 147 rushing yards over their first 3 postseason games to help Philadelphia return to the Super Bowl for the 2nd time in 3 years. As it happened, their opponent in Super Bowl 59 was the same team that vanquished the Eagles in Super Bowl 57, but this time around, even the mighty Chiefs were no match for the Barkley-backed Birds. Against all odds, the Eagles absolutely dominated the Chiefs in Super Bowl 59, with their defense suffocating and overwhelmed Patrick Mahomes and their star-studded offense executing on all fronts. Barkley's contributions were more modest than in his 3 previous games, but he still touched the ball 31 times in Philadelphia's commanding 40-22 victory, which was the cherry on top of his incredible season. Not even 12 months after being cut loose by the only organization he had ever known, Barkley had not only re-established himself as football's most dangerous running back, but he was a Super Bowl champion, an accomplishment that had surely been unimaginable for much of his time in New York. And in the wake of his magical season in Philadelphia, Barkley's career path once again seems to point towards a rarefied legacy, and perhaps even Canton. Despite all the injuries and all those years playing in ghastly Giants offenses, Barkley has racked up more scrimmage yards through his age 27 season than all but 16 players in NFL history. Meanwhile, the list of players with more rushing yards and rushing touchdowns than Barkley through their age 27 seasons is even shorter. He is, simply put, a special player. And now he's a champion too. And while it may be tempting to say that he hit his peak in 2024, doubting Saquon Barkley has never been a good idea. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button.